All right. All right. Aloha Friday, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight or this afternoon as we are streaming live Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Parade Deck. Thank you for being with us today. We are scheduled to have a guest, Keyshawn Phelps, talking leadership, self-confidence, and shifting of your mind. While we waiting on him to join us, just a couple of updates for you as we have re-engaged the Aloha Friday Live show here on LinkedIn primarily. There are a lot of things that have happened. Our YouTube channel has been going great. So happy about how that is panning out. And we're just going to let you know that if you would like to contribute by subscribing to the DTLW podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. We are on the hunt for our 500th subscription. I think we're about 75 off from that mark, but we would appreciate greatly if you would take a moment, subscribe to our DTLW podcast channel, and simply by going at DTLW podcast on YouTube, you'll find our channel. Over 160 leaders from around the world have shared their knowledge on leadership and how to practice leadership. You are not going to be disappointed with the content on there, but we will greatly appreciate your support as we are on the hunt for our 500th subscriber. Every milestone, every 100 milestone is greeted by a signed author copy of a book dealing with leadership. We select from the 100 that are from our subscriber base and then make that available to a lucky winner from that selection. But as we are waiting on our guests, let's talk about a little bit about the things that are going on around the leadership scene. Not so long ago, I shared a specific thing concerning hope. Now, I'll tell you, hey, Terry, thank you for joining me. I'm waiting on my brother there. Happy Friday to you as well. Let me just show that. That's Terry, my brother over there on the Melbourne coast. Love him to death. Know him for a long time. And so hope, right? And this was specific around the youth of our nation, the youth that I've been able to speak with, and some input from youth that are, going through. And he says he is here, but I don't see him backstage. So there's something going on. Keyshawn, I am not seeing you backstage. So there's something going on here. But if you wouldn't mind trying again, logging in, and I should be able to see you come in backstage. While we're waiting for all that to get handled here, so back to the hope, right? And that's why I have Keyshawn speaking today. He speaks to a lot of youth. He speaks and motivates youth, and the subject of hope. Now, I tell you that hope is something that will affect a child, will affect a youth, will affect an adult. Without hope, there's the days get real dark real fast. And sometimes we feel like there's something going on, something's missing. We're not getting any headway in the things that we want. And we lose all sense of a future, right? Of a prosperous future for ourselves. And it's just not a good thing to be in, not a good spot to be in. And I just encourage you, if you are listening and you find yourself with those days occurring more often than not, that you take an opportunity. You can always reach out to me on DMs. You can always send me an email. I'm on several platforms, but do not go through days of hopelessness by yourself. I understand how dark it could get, And I also understand how great it can be in terms of having that someone there to support you. Now, Keyshawn is on, so I'm going to bring him right on in so that we can get into the conversation and let him introduce himself, brother. Hey, there we go. All right.
Hey, there we go. Can you hear me?
I hear you well. Hear you well.
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect. I'm sorry about that. I was
No,
trying to find my way in.
no worries, no worries. Hey, you know the beauty of these shows that we have a lot of grace out there, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
we're gonna go ahead and apply that to ourselves as well today, folks. Keyshawn Phelps, off on the east side of Florida, about an hour from me. We
Yeah.
we 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 definitely have a meetup to conduct and take care of. But we have him here today. Keyshawn, take a couple of minutes and just talk about what you are, what you're doing, and then we'll get into the topics of today, which are right down your wheelhouse.
Okay.
So go ahead, take that opportunity.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. My name is Keyshawn Phelps. I am the mindset shifter, as you can see on my shirt. I am a soon to be author. I am a motivational speaker. I am well as an engineer as well by trade, have my bachelor's and soon to be master's in engineering. I am someone who looks to help individuals make that mindset shift from victim to victorious. I'm someone to help somebody feel see past their current circumstances, see their full potential. I feel as though I'm someone that can help with that because I come from that. I was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, where there's not too many positive role models, and there was a lot of things that if you don't have the right mindset to see past your current circumstances or your environment, it's easy to fall down to the path of destruction. And I feel as though I'm someone that is on the front line of that and speaking, to try and help other individuals see the light at the end of the tunnel as well, and be in a full potential.
And that's great. Like I put in the chat, go from victim to victorious, right? That
Yes.
is the goal of and I just mentioned, and I don't know if you got a couple of the moments that I was speaking about hopelessness
Yes.
and how I've seen that more prevalent in conversations as I speak and hear from youth, but it's worldwide. You know,
Yeah.
hopelessness is something that will affect all of us in one shape or another. Some do not survive, unfortunately, those moments of hopelessness, and some others do survive, and some people just don't get too affected by it because they're around positivity all the time. And that's
Exactly.
a great place to be. But victim, victorious, you can make a choice, right?
Yes.
And we all will have moments where we will find ourselves on either side of those two words.
Right.
How you stay and remain is up to you. So let's
Yes.
talk a little bit about that since you bring up the whole victim versus victorious. Where's the power in remaining?
I think the power in remaining victorious is in the story. I feel as though in order to have a testimony, you gotta have a test. So I feel as though that the things that we go through is not to break us, but it's to make us stronger and to pass that light down to someone else. I know me currently growing up when I didn't have all of the financial means, or I didn't have a positive role model in my life. I felt like the victim. I felt like I'm not here because of this, or I'm not at this place in my life because I didn't have this opportunity. So instead of falling into and drowning in that victimness, I decided to, change that and say, you know what, I'm going to be this, and I'm going to get to that stage because, one day I will be victorious, and I will be able to use some of the steps that I use, which is believe, game plan, execute, and also network, like you spoke previously about your network, and things like that to get to being victorious.
You know, you as you were talking, I started thinking about my own life,
Yeah.
and many here have heard this in one way or another. If you've seen any other podcasts or if you've seen any of the live shows, I often reference a time early on in the military
Yeah.
where I was a victim of, I would say, one of those non in your face, uh, well, I'd say prejudice. It
Yeah.
wasn't in your face. It
Yeah.
wasn't being said. It was just an action. and in some of the words to downplay me based on my ability to speak English. Now, I grew up in a Spanish speaking house.
Right.
I was raised in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So yeah, you New Yorican really.
Yeah.
And I had a way of speaking that was not favored at the time. But I went from victim, and I'm going to say this here because as I'm talking about victorious, I became victorious after the while. But initially, that victim became uh, I was making other people's victims.
Yeah.
And it's you have to be careful that you don't go from victim to abuser,
Right.
because I started using my ability through knowledge seeking to increase myself and I started using it to make sure that people didn't feel as good as I did.
Right.
And so eventually I broke out of that. But initially my goal was to, no one's ever going to make me feel this way.
Yeah.
And I became the abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah, and instead of becoming a light, now eventually, like I said, I became the light for others to get away from those type of events. But it's so important as we talk about becoming victorious that
Yeah.
we don't confuse victorious with becoming a person that now is an abuser.
Yes.
Yeah, because there is a difference.
Yes, that is true. And they always say, it's always a saying that, hurt people, so you also, like you said, spoke on just trying to change your way of thinking, far as not putting your issues or your things that you dealt with onto others, and also just trying to uplift them and not knock them down. So I definitely agree with what you said.
Yeah, it's just important to realize that you may not be victorious. I joke around, and through my coaching,
Yeah.
I always refer to, I take you from success to success.
Yeah.
And that it's always a funny thing to listen and read, but there is a difference between being successful and successful. And a lot of people stay in a life of success thinking they are being victorious.
Right.
And what's happening is that there are things that most people won't call out, because I imagine if I was if I went back and someone said, "Hey, Enrique, you didn't like this person kind of like bullying you. Why are you using now a tool that you just got?" Right?
Right.
If I had that person, I've been great. Um, why are you using now this tool that you got, and now you thinking you're better than everybody else? I would have been like, "Oh, hold up now.
Yeah.
That wasn't the original plan here."
Right.
But I didn't have that somebody on both ends. I didn't have that somebody to say, "Hey, I got you. Don't worry about that. You good."
Right.
I didn't have that. But then I also didn't have the person to say, "Hey, hold up now. I know you've been messed around with, but now you don't got to be messing with
Yeah.
people, right?"
Yeah.
So on either side, you got to have that person to be able to voice those and allow you not to remain successful,
Right.
allow you to bridge all forward. Now, my situation, self-confidence, and I know you dive into this.
Right.
Self-confidence was a thing that was challenged for me. Uh, Coming at me with words of like, "You don't speak good enough English," or "I don't understand your accent. What's that slang you talking?" All of
Right.
those things were direct attacks, but they were direct attacks at my person, and I allowed my self confidence to go down a way and a road that I shouldn't have,
Right.
to become that now abuser, right? Early on.
Right.
Um, Self confidence. Where do you see that? And if you was to say on a scale of 1 to 10, in the groups that you talk to, where is that in the communities that you speak?
I believe self confidence is something that I preach that is should be on the forefront. I believe before anything, any goal you try to accomplish, anything that you are seeking, the first thing is believing. and believing in yourself, and also I try to speak to individuals when it comes to self confidence. It is not being overly boast or arrogant. It's understanding your value, understanding that you belong in the rooms that you're speaking at. You bring something, you add value to wherever you're speaking at. And when I speak to young individuals, I just try to tell them to be authentic, be themselves, and the things that are their weakness, work on making it them strengths. I know for me personally, speaking wasn't always my best strong suit. But it's funny now that I'm in this lane of being a motivational speaker. But growing up, if you would have told me that a long time ago that I would be a motivational speaker, man, I'd probably laugh. But I feel as though self confidence is something that is on the forefront because you need to one understand that you are adding value to yourself, you are adding value to the others, and people want to hear your story. So that's something that I try to attest and try to explain to the youth as well, and understanding that their circumstances and that your environment is not who you are. And a lot of individuals that I speak to come from um, rough environments, backgrounds that are not the best. So they allow that to say, I'm not supposed to be here because I come from this, or I won't be here because of that. Instead of using that as, I will become
Mhm.
someone, I will be better to help those around me and the future family and things like that.
Yeah, self confidence. I had mentioned environment, right?
Hmm.
Environment is so key to allowing someone to believe. And you talked about belief, right? You got to
Yeah.
start. You have to start with you.
Yeah.
You cannot go outside of you to get a value.
Right.
If you
Right.
cannot see the value in you,
You're already
you're
behind the eight
gonna
ball.
be. It's done.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
gonna accept every value. Kind of like you're gonna be this this product on a shelf where the person with the tag is just arbitrarily
Yeah.
assigning value to you.
Right.
And sometimes even we know
Right.
sometimes things are labeled at the wrong price.
Right, and you mentioned confidence, and it's this quote that Marcus Garvey said: "If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life." And I think that is something that sticks to the conversation of having that self confidence and believing in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had a dime for every time somebody said I couldn't,
Right, you'll be,
I had some money.
yeah,
But 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 they had to contend with their approach to me and my belief in myself.
right,
Now I'm gonna tell you, there's been some times that I didn't believe in myself.
hmm
Right? I'm
and
not
that
saying
happens.
that I was
Yeah.
ironclad in that area, but you know, if you are challenged
Hmm.
with self belief, belief in yourself, what should I start doing and start thinking about?
And say that again. I'm sorry, you started to breaking up a little.
If I was a person and you had the opportunity to talk
Mhm.
to, if I was challenged with self belief, where do I start?
Honestly, I always recommend starting from your wins. I always call it the cookie jar. Always go back into your cookie jar and understanding that, in your mind, okay, for instance, let me give an example. If I knew that speaking wasn't my strong suit, but I gave a speech in class the other day and I did really well on that, hone in on that, hone in on that win because, and use that to understand that, okay, at this point, I was stressing over something that I didn't have confidence in, but I gave it my best shot and I believed in myself and I succeed. So if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And understanding that, working on yourself and understanding your weaknesses and facing it in the mirror. If you know your one of your weaknesses, like you said, was speaking, try to do things to work on speaking on that in a closed setting to where or with people that you're trusting. And I feel like that with self confidence will help expand you to a far greater results if you're digging in that cookie bag and digging in that wins and using that to propel you closer to your full self of confidence.
I love that. And if you're gonna take note of something,
Right.
don't note the negatives
Right.
because you can always surpass that.
Yes.
Note the positives. And if
Yes.
you're gonna have any record of anything,
Yeah.
Record the positive.
Yes, and you probably can attest to this as well. You ever had a situation where you thought like, man, this is the toughest time. I can't get through this. I don't know how to get through this. And then you look at yourself now, and you're like, oh wow, I got through that, and that's not even wasn't even a big issue. And you could use stuff like that. That like I was complaining about something at that time, but I got past it, and I'm still here, strong today. And I'm still moving forward and put my greatness on this world. And that's things that I lean on. So leaning on your cookie jar and digging in your cookie jar when you need it to propel you.
Outstanding, folks. Thank you. I want to take a break here. Thank you for joining us. There's several on LinkedIn, several on Facebook, several on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. If you're looking at us through Parade Deck, one of our host platforms, thank you for joining us there. Today, we are talking with Keyshawn Phelps specifically about leadership, self-confidence, and shifting in your minds. And right now, speaking specifically about self-confidence, take notice and take note of your accomplishments. Write those down so that you can look back and say, hey, yeah, they said I couldn't, but look at all this.
Yes.
Right. And start stepping through that list. Because if you cannot encourage yourself, right, and I'm biblically based,
Yes.
so I remember this time King David, he went out for a war, he came back, they stole everybody, and everything. They were about to get him. He's like, he had to encourage himself.
Yes.
Right, you have to encourage yourself sometimes.
Yes,
it's going to get dark sometimes. Especially if you're in entrepreneurship. Hey, we're both in that public speaking.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't call.
Right. And that's true.
You got a lot to say and they don't call. You got to take note of the things in the past that you were successful in. Yes. and cling on to that.
Yes.
Cling on to that. Now, Ophelia, thank you for joining us. She's there to talk about great conversation. Thank you so much for being with us. And she mentioned this. I'm going to bring it back up here so we could talk about this a little bit. Because the mind, I remember a commercial way back when, probably before you, brother. The mind is a terrible thing to waste, and I used to see that all the time. It used to come out at night, right? And she says here, I say, fake it in your mind until you believe it, and there is a sense of or a level of truth in that, and I want to explore that area. Mm-hmm. Your mind is a receiver.
Yeah.
Right? It only outputs to things you receive.
Yeah.
So you're going to react to something with your body based on something that you heard, and your mind's going to process that.
Yep. It's as strong as a muscle. Yep.
So if you're going to feed your mind anything, you might as well feed it something that maybe is not yet.
Right.
Kind of like, and at church, they said faith is the substance, right? It's things that you don't see it yet.
Right.
But guess what? In your mind, if you can accept it and start applying the fact that it will come, you will get your body in line with actions that will lead you to that end goal.
Yeah. It's two sayings that I always say, and one of them is that if you shift your mindset, you will unlock your potential. And also, I always say that with the right mindset, you can attain any goal that you set. And that's something that I always speak to when I'm doing speaking engagements and speaking to the youth and things like that.
And mindset, let's transition into mindset, since we'll start talking about this 3-pound, sometimes enemy of ours, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's the best thing, but sometimes it's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same amount of mind capacity. Some people tap into it a little more. Mm-hmm. Einstein was one, right? And it wasn't all that much more, but he did.
Yeah.
And it's funny how all of us having seemingly the same resource, when you talk about mind,
right,
we use it differently.
Yeah.
We talked about environment, which it has a lot to do with it.
Right.
Right. If you're being brought up by some parents that are not as invested in your future as they are in theirs, and maybe they're not even invested in theirs. So guess what? They're not going to be invested in yours.
Yeah. What you see is what you do.
And so we have a lot of environment challenges when it talks about mind shifting and mind setting. If I'm in one of those environments, what do you tell a kid that's in an environment that's just not fruitful?
Well, the first thing I always say is whatever you nourish will flourish. So what you listen to, what you read, who you speak with, that will have an effect on your thinking, if you believe it or not. But I always speak to kids and I always tell them, think further than your environment, think further than what you see, have faith, and everything that you are doing. And I know sometimes we don't have the opportunities to see past our circumstances. But that's why I feel like reading is crucial. Speaking with people that have been in places that you want to go. So you, like you said, your network is your net worth, I always say. And not even far as financial, but also far as knowledge base, because knowledge is really, really valuable as well. But I always tell people to see the greatness in themselves, understanding that they can right their wrongs, that they can make things possible if they sit down and see where they can help out themselves a lot. I tend to see a lot that many people, like we spoke earlier, become victims, and they sit in that, and they try to stay, I can't do this because of this, and turning that into I'm going to be successful because I'm going to do this, I'm going to put time in, and I'm going to sit down and study the greats. I'm going to sit down and be in environments where it will propel me closer to my goal instead of further away.
Yeah, I had a preacher pastor friend of mine
Mhm.
tell me once, I must have said can't. I
Yeah.
must have, right?
Hmm.
'Cause they came out straight and said Canton's dead.
Yeah.
I said, what? They said, yeah, I went to the funeral.
I like that.
Not only is it dead, I saw it,
Yeah.
and we had a funeral for that thing.
Yeah.
Can't is a very powerful word.
Hmm.
Can't is used a lot from adults to youth,
Hmm.
adults to adults.
Yep.
Right? There are some full grown folk that are limited by another full grown folk telling
Hmm.
them they can't.
Yep.
Right?
And
And
whatever you
so
tell your mind, your body will follow. So
that's right.
yeah.
And even you have to be careful what you accept,
Hmm.
and you must know that you don't have to accept a thing,
All right. Yep.
not a thing.
Yep. That is true. Take what's useful and get rid of the rest.
Yeah, Ophelia, she said, I'm going to use that one. I don't know which one of that is, but we've been talking about here leadership, self confidence, and shifting your mind with Keyshawn Phelps, my brother on the East Coast of Florida. And yeah, Keyshawn, what are some of the challenges you see when you talk about or when you talk to these groups that you come on, and what are the topics that you seem to be talking most about?
I think the first thing I think I always see is the belief thing. I think when I go speak to kids, normally there's only two ways of success for them, and that is either playing a sport or that's becoming an artist or actor and things like that. So that's their main goal. So if that doesn't happen, it's like they like, am I a failure? Like did everything go wrong? And what I try to preach, and as I try to be a representation as myself, is that like there's many ways to success. There's many ways to your happiness other than just those two avenues. So that's the first thing I try to break them out, is to expand their mind and to think more than just playing a sport or becoming an artist or actress or anything like that. You could be an entrepreneur, you could be a lawyer, doctor, you could be anything you put your mind to, astronaut, whatever you want to be, you can do it. There's more ways to success, and success is only the happiness for yourself. So I always try to get that out the way of believing in themselves and believing that there's more avenues in themselves, and taking things seriously. I think that's something that I think youth that I speak to is, they have time. They feel like they have time. So it's like, oh, it's okay. I won't have to listen right now. I already got it figured out, and that's something that a barrier that I have to break down sometimes and explain to them, why I'm here and how I can help. But some of the topics that I speak to, and which is not limited to, but it's just overcoming fear and failure, finding your purpose, building lasting relationships, self confidence, like we said, leadership, and resilience, and having the grit and the will to win are some of the topics that I speak to.
Let's talk about relationship building, because I think
Mm,
that those are pivotal,
yes.
even in an environment that is not favoring you or your growth.
Right.
If you have certain relationships, they can actually help you outgrow the environment that you're in. So let's talk about mentorship, because mentorship is one of those key elements in relationships
Yes.
that is seldom enacted or activated from the youth standpoint.
Hmm.
They're It's always waiting for somebody,
Yeah.
always waiting for somebody, right? And as an avid mentor, I cannot identify everybody that needs something. So
Right.
if I'm a youth, I'm a young person, I'm a young professional, and I'm looking to uh, kind of work my way out of a situation,
Hmm.
an environment, how would you go about getting that mentorship? Because we just don't know.
Yes. So the first thing that I always try to explain is the difference of mentorship. Some individuals may believe that mentor is to help you get you to where you want to be, but that's mostly so of a sponsor. But when it comes to mentorship, I feel as though that you have to evaluate your situation. So if you're in, let's say, high school, a guidance counselor, a teacher, a principal, or maybe a basketball coach, or whatever coaches around you can be a mentor for you. And also, I feel as though someone that maybe that is older than you, that are doing things that you can see yourself doing in a positive light. I feel as though, but the first step is just like you said, mentioned. You can't help everyone because you don't know what everyone's going through. So I think the first thing is voicing, being comfortable with saying what you're going through, expressing yourself, and allowing others to understand that, hey, I'm going through this, but I want to get to here. And by you speaking, you can put yourself in places that that you never knew that you can be in, and I can speak to that as well. Because that's something that I personally did growing up. I always was vocal with, where I want to be. I wanted to know I wanted to be someone successful. So I wanted to talk to those that I seen were achieving success.
If you see something that you like,
Hmm.
speak up.
Yes.
Speak up,
I
because
think that, and I think that's the biggest thing because we come from an environment where, especially as males,
right.
it's not okay what they say that it's not okay to speak, but try to change the narrative. I'm saying that it's great to speak. It's great to voice what you're going through. Because we know we're stronger together than separate. So getting out there and voicing your feelings.
Yeah, and I had a individual. I spoke at Podfest this year.
Okay.
I'm so grateful to speak every year since the last 4 years now.
Yeah.
But I was giving a class on sponsorship, right? How do
Yeah.
you get sponsorships for
Hmm.
a podcast or some endeavor that you are in? And after the talk, this young lady comes out, and she was in the group, and
Yeah.
she says, "I need you to mentor me." And it was like, okay, I mean, we just met,
Right.
but I could see
Hmm.
and I could feel her desire to becoming better.
Right.
And I said, let's go for it.
Yes.
And we've been in mentorship ever since.
Yes.
And
And as a mentor, I'm sorry, coach. I'm sorry. As a mentor, you see that particular, like you said, that energy, that will. You have to. The mentee has to have that will and that want, and wants to help themselves first as well. Because like you'll be talking to a brick wall if you're trying to give a message and convey a message to them to see the light in themselves. So that's something that I know you mentioned. You said you've seen the energy and the will in her, and I think that's something I wanted to pinpoint on when a mentor and mentee relationship.
yeah, and had I not seen that, I would have said, okay, well, let's talk about this further down the road, and would not said, okay, this is an opportunity to capture a person and in the element of hunger,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
They're hungry, they want it, let's go. And that's the type of approach I usually have. but it started with an identification on their part
Mm-hmm.
that they found who they were looking for.
Right.
And so, in order for you to identify that, you have to know what you're lacking. And so,
Yes.
there's a lot of self awareness that comes in, both in self confidence and being able to shift your mind, but locating someone that can potentially help you
Right.
in your future.
And always tell people, man, people come into your life, either for a lesson and a blessing, but it's always a lesson, in when you're meeting individuals, whether that would be good or bad. So like I said, take what you can use and get rid of the rest that you feel is not, applicable to what you got aligned. But it's definitely always good with meeting individuals. I'm a person that if I see someone, I'm gonna speak, because I never know what I can learn from them, never know what they can help me with, or never know what I can help them with. So it's a revolving door when it comes to relationships.
Now, in terms of the mind setting,
Hmm.
there are probably some practices that you bring people through, or some sort of structure you bring some people through. If I want to shift my mind, but I've been stuck, where do I start in shifting mine? Where do I start in going the other way? Right,
Yes.
because this is basically, it's not and now another way could just be 1 degree.
Hmm.
Right? If you're on a ship, you turn that thing 1 degree, you're gonna be way out there by the
Yeah.
time, because time facilitates the distance.
Hmm.
So how do you advise someone to start even that 1 degree shift?
The first thing I do is ask them to focus on their habits. Focus on, do your goals align with the actions that you're doing today, and I let them sit and ponder on that, because we also tend to say we want to be something or we want to achieve something, but our actions are not aligning with that. And I always try to sit down with them to understand that, okay, yes, you want to do this, but are you working towards that? Or are you doing things that are pushing you further away, which is when then excuses start to kick in. So I think the first thing I always do is try to see what their habits are, see how bad they want to make the change. And I do different activities, far as I call it, finding your way in the dark, right? It's something that I say, close your eyes, and listen to my voice and things like that. And then I also tell them that, like, so instance, I say this: I am your goal, right? You want to get to me, right? So close your eyes and find your way to me, right? And usually, people closing their eyes, they don't know where they're going. So they just, bumping into things. They're hitting things, or they lose track of where I'm at because their eyes are closed. But I say, okay, open your eyes, right? And I say, come to where I'm at. And of course, they're walking, they'll sit there and be like, okay, yeah, I'm here. And I say, you see how easy it was for you to see your path when you have clear step on a clear path to where you're going. It's easy, right? I said, instead of when your eyes are closed and you're in the dark. So just trying to assess with them, like say the habits, let them have a great game plan, and sitting down with them and understanding that the goal setting is crucial. Because if you don't have a plan, you having a plan to fail. And we are not failures in here. So I always try to teach them that moving forward is the best motion that you can do, and executing that game plan. And I think, like you said, spoke earlier with networking. So I do different activities as far as that, just helping them mindset shit, and helping them, like say, find what's in their cookie jar, helping them find wins. Because a lot of individuals growing up, or a lot of individuals that are trying to make the mindset shift, they don't realize how much greatness they have in them, how many things that they have accomplished. Until we sit down and I talk to them and they say, oh yeah, I did this. Oh wow, yeah, I did that. And it's like they start remembering like all of the great things, and they start to see that light, and they start to try to, whatever I was doing, it's helping in the right way. So I think that's something that I help try to, do the mindset shift with.
Yeah, being in the dark, it's treacherous.
Yes.
Treacherous. Well, get up in the middle of the night and don't turn on
Yeah,
lights.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You start bumping into something, but if you
Yeah,
turn
you're
the
gonna
lights
get
on,
stubbed
it's easy to
toes,
get
bumped
to it.
head, right? And
Yeah.
and in the trajectory of life, when you're trying to track down a successful journey,
Hmm.
you will have to be clear.
Yes.
Clear. They say clear as mud. No, this thing needs to be clear, right?
Yes.
It has to be a very thought out steps and procedures
Mm-hmm.
with occasional guidance, right? Because
Yes.
you can't just take everybody's
Right.
input. Where's yours, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. You
But
have.
with occasional and deliberate guidance to make sure that you are headed in the right direction. But always keep your eyes open, because at any given time, we're going to get a unintended shift. And let's talk about unintended shift, because mind shifts could be something we direct,
Right.
but some shifts are directed by the
Of course. Yeah.
environment, the
Mm-hmm.
situation, circumstances, right? What you do in those times of unintended or imposed
Right.
shifts is really where we get the most bang for the buck. So, what do I do in those times where these shifts are not necessarily imposed by our will and our desire or our roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
but they come, kind of like, Rona.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rona, that was an unintended shift,
Yeah.
and we just had to make do.
Yep. So I think the first thing is evaluation, evaluating everything that is going on, evaluating how did you get there, and another word to shift is pivot. Learning how, if you play basketball, that using your pivot foot to get to it, the best direction to get to the basket, which is the goal. So using that pivot to understand that, okay, I got here, all right, but you have a game plan, you have where you want it to go. So you sit there and you analyze, okay, I got off course a little bit, but let me figure a way out to get back to there. I knew I stopped at this last step, and now I need to work on getting to the next step and sitting down and realizing that it's okay to get knocked off your path sometimes, but getting reacclimated and getting readjusted, and taking the reasons why you got off course as a lesson, and understanding that you didn't fail. This is not the end of the road. This is bumps, and it's a roller coaster on the road to achieving self confidence and leadership and things like that. But taking those testimonies, okay, I got here because I did this, and now building your mind and building your experience and testimony. So when you are back on your journey, you can use and, like I say, reflect on the things that you went through before to help you stay aligned with your goal.
And that's wonderful. I put in the chat: evaluate, analyze, pivot, and lessons learned. Get back on the journey.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all going to have some moment where we have to take a pause.
Yes.
We have to evaluate what's going on, right? In the Navy, they taught us you don't just run into a space, folks. Don't just, there's an emergency. Don't just be running into the
Yeah.
space. We've lost many a sailor that just ran into a space,
Yeah.
did not realize that there was no oxygen in there,
Mhm.
right? And ended up being a casualty. Evaluate, analyze what it is that's going on.
Right.
And if you have to readjust, do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Take your lesson, make sure you annotate it, right? You don't want nobody else going through. Maybe
Right.
you can share it.
Yes.
And at the same time, you have to re-engage. You have to start putting that pedal on that gas,
Mhm.
or that foot on that pedal, and get some gas in there and start moving your way.
Mm.
Because the last thing you want to do is, especially in a mind shift scenario,
Yeah.
that you're stuck.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck.
Yes.
And
When you are
so,
making the mindset shift, you are at a vulnerable time. Because
mm,
sometimes when we are trying to shift for what we think is the best, sometimes we can get, sent on the wrong path because we're chasing something that didn't really align, or something that we really wanted the best for ourselves. So I think something just understanding that we are vulnerable, but we also need to understand that some things is only going to either help us or it's going to push us further away from that goal. So always remember that and stay in the lines and not out of bounds.
yeah, and I love how you talk about the vulnerability piece, because we don't consider that moment in our life as a vulnerable moment, but people have went down the wrong the
Yes.
wrong route
Yes.
because it's so vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
You're in a moment of need, and you have to understand that you are, not to just go with whatever comes your way.
Right.
You have to learn how to digress sometimes, right? In my mentorship session with that young lady that I spoke about, she was like, hey, I had to take a pause. I said, yeah, sometimes you got to slow down.
Yes.
To move farther down the road. It's almost like slingshot, right? And that's the metaphor she used. And so you have to know and realize that those moments do cause some level of vulnerability on our part. And you have to be ready not to be a victim again.
Right.
Right. Because it could happen.
Yes. And I believe that is something that you said is really, really true. And I really agree with, because sometimes we are vulnerable, but like you said, it goes back to the speaking of, not speaking up. And I think that's something that, us as individuals, when we on this journey, trying to make the mindset shift and reaching success and self-confidence, is being able to speak to what you're going through, because that's only making you stronger.
Absolutely. Now, Keyshawn, you're over there on the east side. You're speaking, you're training, you're educating, you're motivating.
Yes.
If someone wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to say, hey, I like what Keyshawn said. I love to have him speak at this venue or to this specific group. What would be the best way for them to contact you and communicate with you?
Yes. So if you are on social media, I am heavily on LinkedIn with Keyshawn Phelps. If you want to contact me directly, I have a website, themindsetshifter.org, where you can see all the things that I have going on, see some of the galleries and photos that I have, some of the podcasts and things that I spoke on, but also too, a speaker's request. I have a form there where you can go in and fill in your form. And also, you can reach me by email if that is something that you guys would like. It's the mindset shifter, the number 7 at gmail.com. And I can be contacted there directly, or by phone, which is 862-224-7572. So I'm open to all avenues. If people want to reach out to me through website, through social medias, or even through cell phone, I am here to help people make that mindset shift and to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Outstanding, folks. We'll make sure to get in the chat, put all those resources and ways of getting a hold of Keyshawn in there so that you can. Keyshawn, it's been great talking to you, brother. Love what you're doing. When you head down this way, let me know.
Yes.
We'll be sure to connect, and I'll do the same if I do on your part, folks. It has been great, not only having Keyshawn here, but also having you every Friday. Join us. Thank you. So many that were on LinkedIn and the different platforms. Thank you for joining us today. As I had mentioned earlier, we are on the hunt for 500, and we want you to help us out. If you're on YouTube, at DTLW Podcast is our channel, and we would love for you to follow us there. Over 160 different leaders speaking about leadership topics that run the gamut. I mean, you're going to get a lot of free and great content there. So help us out by going there and subscribing to our channel. Today, it has been all about Keyshawn Phelps. We'll make sure to get all that information on there for you to connect with him. But thank you. Aloha Friday, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. And we'll see you next week.
Yes.